Hello and welcome back to No Longer Legally Detained, the podcast about life after the psych ward. How do you navigate being an adult when you never expected to be one? If you're new here, thank you so much for joining, and if you're a returning listener, welcome back. It's been a journey already, and I'm so pleased and excited that you have come to join me again. So today we are talking all things Christmas. Yes, it is celebrating the holidays, and for those of us who maybe struggle a little bit, we're going to be talking about doing it our own way. For those of us living with neurodivergence, mental health challenges, and other complexities that come with the holiday season, it can feel really challenging and overwhelming. If you're someone who is autistic, ADHD, like me, have ARFID or other eating disorders, complex trauma, complex PTSD, Christmas can feel like an emotional minefield. There's a lot of noise, a lot of people, a lot of expectations, and lots of different experiences. All that can make it feel like we're stumbling through a holiday maze, hoping we don't hit a sensory overload or have a meltdown or having to interact with many people that we haven't interacted with for the whole year. So in this special episode, we're going to be talking about navigating Christmas and you're balancing all of these challenges and maybe throw in some strategies for getting through it too. It's all about managing your expectations and figuring out ways to keep your peace when everything around you seems to be pulling you in a million directions. As always, I am not a doctor, I am not a scientist or anything like that, but I'm just sharing my experiences and the experiences of those around me, and hopefully together we can take a deep breath and remember we are not alone and we will get through this. So as always, I'm going to start with my challenge of the week, and this week my executive functioning has completely left my body. I have no idea. I have never struggled so much with my executive functioning in my entire life, and it's absolutely crazy. I have literally I'm sat here in the morning of when this podcast has got to go out and I'm recording it, as we can see, and I have never struggled this badly with just trying to be a human being. So that's fun. But my kind of glimmer of the week has been reaching out, kind of knowing that I do have people around me and kind of building on relationships, and asking for help when I need it, just being around people, realising that as much as it can feel very lonely and isolating, I do have people in my life. So yeah. The holiday season can really highlight to us kind of many different emotions. It's meant to be this magical and amazing time of the year, and it really can be, but it also can come with so many expectations. So today we're just going to have a little chat, break it down, what makes Christmas so hard, and what tips and tricks can we put in place in our own lives to make it feel a bit better. Although this episode is focusing on Christmas, as that's the holiday that my family celebrate and the one I know the best. And this is not the religious aspect of any of these kind of holiday festivals, it's more just the general narrative. So hopefully that means that even if you don't celebrate Christmas, you may be able to take something from this episode. Okay, so first things first, we're going to start with the sensory overload of Christmas. Christmas brings a lot of stimulation, and that's not just the lights, the sound, the smells, the crowd. It's also the expectations, the events, the change in routine, and it can feel like a lot. And sometimes it just feels like you're swimming in a sea of sensory input. And as someone who often describes being neurodivergent as while everybody else sees the world in 3D, we view it in 4D. So we've got all those extra kind of feelings, and it's you are even more sensitive to all of that input, and it can just feel like everything is just too much constantly. And obviously there can be the obvious, being autistic, and people who struggle with the input in the moment, and I definitely have had that myself. But also I think that kind of low grade, slowly draining your energy is something that isn't maybe spoken about as much. The fact that yes, in the moment you can tolerate all of these kind of sensory inputs, but actually it's slowly but surely draining your battery, and then you end up more easily burnt out, kind of finding your not able to cope phrase quicker. And then I think when you add like talk about ADHD, your brain might be going a million miles per hour trying to process it all. And it's really funny because I am massively struggling with my executive dysfunction. No, yeah, my executive function. My executive function is completely dysfunctioning. Um, I have never like realized as much as recently how completely unable I have am at the moment to like just compartmentalize any part of my life. And saying that, literally only realized yesterday when I was creating the graphic for this podcast that it's literally Christmas a week yesterday. I had managed to get to the 18th of December and not even really realize that it was Christmas. And like, obviously, I know we're in December and like I've seen all the Christmas stuff. Like, I'm not living under a rock, but to had not completely not compartmentalized any of it. And I think that is really strange for someone like me who used to really live for Christmas. It was like my favorite time of the year. Um, and I think there's lots of reasons, not necessarily linking to sensory kind of overwhelm, but it's interesting that because I haven't done as many Christmassy things this year, kind of it's allowed me to the bits that I have kind of accidentally fallen into Christmas like events, how overstimulating they really are. And I think I was just walking through Covent Garden, which obviously like that is crazy, because it's like central London, but literally I've never realized my kind of sensory. I've always known that I'm quite a sensory person, like ever since I kind of knew that that was a thing, but I have never really understood my sensory difficulties anywhere near as much as I have the past couple of months. And I think I'm so now conscious of like how easily my battery is drained, how quickly my bucket fills up, or whatever other analogy you want to use, and that actually I need to be thinking about how I can keep that kind of level of being able to cope. So I'm going to have a look at some tips for navigating sensory overload. Obviously, it's very individual and very unique. And the thing with sensory input, um, sensory overload, all of those things is so individual. But these are just some of the things that I've tried or people have suggested. And obviously, you can take them for however you want in whatever they work for you. But creating a sensory safe space, I think that's something that's really important. And obviously, it's hard if you're going away for Christmas or you're going away for the holiday season and you're in a new place. But if you're able to kind of create a quiet room or your bedroom, or even if it's just your like corner of wherever you're staying, like if you can make a little place that you can retreat back to, that you can feel safe, whether that be even just be a chair, get your noise cancelling headphones on, get those ear defenders on, or otherwise known as the autism headphones, and a weighted blanket or your teddy or whatever like makes you feel safe. And I think it's really hard if maybe, you know, your family aren't as supportive and that's really challenging, and that kind of brings a whole nother aspect and dimension into the situation. But if you can create wherever you are a safe part, even if it's not a whole room, if it's just a corner with the things that you like make you feel grounded, and like that thing of like when you're packing and it can be hard, like you can only pack a certain amount of stuff, but I would definitely prioritize things that allow you to stay grounded and present and creating that safe space, um even if it's a temporary on the move safe space. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, I say we, it's literally me. I'm so like not with it. Um, the autism headphones, the earplugs, the ear defenders, the headphones. Um, Music is everywhere at Christmas, and I was literally sat in the cafe yesterday at uni, and literally the music was making me want to rip. I don't know, like rip my eyeballs out. So having those noise cancelling headphones, earplugs, loops, whatever you kind of use, whatever works, so that you can kind of reduce that background noise. And I would definitely suggest like the inner earplugs that you wear like often, like all of the time. um I never realized the impact of like just the general background noise. And when I wear my loops from the beginning of like things, you don't necessarily notice it in the moment, but I noticed after like using them a lot that the kind of I was not going into meltdowns anywhere near as much. So I would really suggest kind of they take a while to like get used to, and it's more not necessarily in the moment that you necessarily feel any difference, but it's when you realize, or for me anyway, that like I realize that I'm not anywhere near as overwhelmed or close to like going into a meltdown. So that's been really helpful. I think there are other kind of things that can happen, and obviously I'm very conscious that, you know, when you look at all of the suggestions for Christmas and stuff, like, you know, limiting decorations, doing this, doing that, and it can be hard because, you know, you're not necessarily in control of those things. And so I would say something that I'm really trying is to like create my own routine that is around the routines of other people in my life, and like having that structure and control within that. And so yes, it might not be a structure or like what is ideal for you, but like creating in the bits that you can control, creating that structure that allows you to have some kind of thing to hold on to. And I think the big thing is that, especially if you're an adult and you're able to, remembering that it's okay to say no. There is absolutely no requirement to attend everything just because it's Christmas. There will be another Christmas next year. There will be other events throughout the year. I think there can be so much pressure that this is like the best time of year and we have to say yes to everything. And Christmas, you know, is meant to be enjoyable. Obviously, there are lots of different, you know, reasons behind Christmas. Like the obviously religious reasons and like other kind of different things, but in terms of like really like the reason people are doing all of these things is because they enjoy it, they want to have fun, and your fun might look different to that, and that's okay. So it's okay to say no. It's okay if, you know, you want to do something else, you want to sit at home, you want to bake cookies and watch a Christmas film, because the reason people want to go out and do all these events is because they really enjoy them and it makes them really happy. And so if that doesn't make you happy, that's okay, because we're all different. And so it's about finding what is magical for you at Christmas and doing that, kind of relinquishing the social expectation of what everybody else thinks is the right way to celebrate Christmas or the right way to celebrate the holidays or the right way to enjoy yourself, and go, no, well, that's not how I enjoy myself, but actually I'm going to do what makes me happy, because just as equally as that's why they're doing those things, we can do the things that make us happy and feel magical and relax and all of those things. So that was quite autism focused. And I'm going to go into a bit of ADHD and managing ADHD during the holidays. I think it's really tricky because there's so many aspects to Christmas, but I kind of wanted in this episode to kind of go through the different things that I struggle with and like how I maybe hope to manage them and kind of break them down. Um, so yeah, going on to ADHD. So it's a lovely cocktail of forgetfulness, distractibility, impulsivity, and just complete executive dysfunction, as well as the rejection sensitivity. And that makes kind of holiday planning, just existing, really tricky. And then you add in all the extra like plans and the changes when it comes to Christmas or the holiday season, and remembering all of these schedules and dealing with the extra responsibilities can literally feel like your brain is juggling a dozen different things all at once. And I have completely lost my executive functioning, as I mentioned earlier. I'm not sure whether it's for Christmas related or just like, I don't know, like burnout related. Who knows? But I am just completely like, taken me like the past few days, like literally 10 minutes when I'm fully ready to leave the house, because I just cannot function, like can't compartmentalize and comprehend what I need to do, and like I get so stressed leaving the house even if I'm like fully ready. And I think that's definitely that kind of, my brain is just in complete overload. um and then there's also the thing of like getting hyper focused as well on one task, like say wrapping presents, and then you forget to do anything else, like checking the oven, responding to messages, like then the anxiety kicks in and you realize that you've missed something important but you can't remember what it is. Like literally I've just spent, since I woke up this morning, like just not being able to find my microphone. And now someone just sent me an email, and like as that came up, I thought I'd muted my thing. So now like that's going on, and I'm just like thinking, oh, I've got all of these things to do, and it could end up like not, you end up not doing anything because it's so overwhelming. And I think that's just general ADHD life. And then when you add in something like the holidays, where there's so much dopamine hits, there's so much kind of opportunities for distractibility and impulsivity. It can just feel like this kind of very, very overwhelming state. So again, I have not realized it's Christmas, as we have established. And so I have not really kind of ever managed my ADHD during the holidays, like consciously. But having a think, when I was thinking about kind of ways that I would help myself with that, I think a big thing, and kind of what I'm doing in just in general life, is like breaking down the tasks and like big holiday projects and kind of writing things down and setting them into different like tasks. And I was watching a podcast a while back, and it was talking about like the to-do list, and having like just having a to-do list isn't like really very useful, and like separating it into like quick ticks and like projects and then tasks. Wait, no, projects at the top, and then like within the project the tasks and the quick ticks, and that's like really has kind of helped me. I'm still not there yet, and that's something that I need to look at my organization skills, but we're not going to talk about that right now because I can barely keep my eyes open. I don't think I've taken my ADHD medication this morning, actually. That could probably be part of the issue. Anyway, we'll do that in a second. Once I've recorded this segment, I'm going to go take my ADHD meds. Like, managing your ADHD during the holidays, take your medication. Step one. If you take medication, obviously not for everybody, and I know there's lots of issues with the supply. So yeah, anyway, right, completely distracted. This is why I take my medication, because I'm like, what was that noise? Okay, anyway, right, focus, Hannah. What was I talking about? So this is the thing with ADHD. I've completely forgotten what I was talking about. Breaking down tasks, yeah. So projects, quick ticks, and tasks, and that's actually really helped me in terms of like looking at looking at things in a way that's easier to break them down and then to do, because I used to just put everything on my to-do list, but some things have multiple steps and multiple stages. So like that's where the idea of like you're having your project, whatever the project is, and then separating your project into tasks, and then within those tasks the quick ticks of how you achieve that task. And it, although feels quite like laborious, that's a big word, it really does like help kind of make those steps more manageable. So that is something that I would definitely do. And also pacing yourself. And I like write my to-do list in the morning, and I like have such high expectations that I never achieve them. And so definitely being more realistic. Setting alarms and reminders. Like, I've never necessarily been someone, like my sibling always used to set like alarms for things, and I would always be like really like didn't know why that was a thing, like how that worked. I thought it would just be really annoying, but oh my god, oh my life, have reminders and alarms become very useful. I think that's something that I might talk about in a different episode, of like how my ADHD has maybe manifested differently as like I've kind of found myself more. But literally get those reminders in, get those alarms, alarm everything. If you can label your alarms so you know why the alarm's going off, otherwise you just got alarms going off left, right, and center, and you don't know what they're for. And like for someone who gets like who's also autistic and like doesn't like the noises of alarms, you may want to be like me, more sensible about why you're setting your alarms and like your reminders and stuff. You might want to put them on vibration or like doing them in a different way. But life saving, like just having those reminders of like, even if it's just leaving the house, like now I have tendency to like set my alarms for like different stages of what like of leaving the house. So like I know like, oh, when this alarm goes off I need to start getting ready, then when this alarm goes off like I need to make sure my bag's packed, I need to put my shoes on. And like it sounds really basic, but when you're like in such executive dysfunction, like such struggling with like being able to compartmentalize everything, that can really help. Delegating where possible. I think that's that thing of being able to ask for help, getting people to help you, being part of that community. And it's really tricky, and as someone who lives like alone, I completely get that, and it can be really hard, and when there isn't anybody to turn to, but kind of trying to share the load and remember that like you don't have to do it all. And if you don't get it done for this Christmas, like this isn't the be all and end all. Christmas isn't, or the holiday season isn't like this is it. Like, so there's
that pressure is not healthy or helpful to anybody. And actually, what is this? What is the meaning of Christmas? What is the spirit of Christmas? And obviously, that means different things to different people. But whatever that means to you, the focus should be on that, and it's never going to be on perfection, or hopefully, it's not. And then another thing of using timers, and it's something that I'm kind of trying to get more into, but I'm not very good at it. But like having setting timers, first of all, because that I think helps the like procrastination, because you know that like you're only doing it for a certain amount of time. And then also really helps obviously the hyper focusing of like when you turn around and it's like the end of the day and you've just spent all of your time, decorating a really lovely Christmas Pinterest board, and you're like, oh, that was not what I was meant to do. So yeah, hopefully those are some like little ADHD tips. I'm like, you probably can hear background noise because I literally can't sit still right now. This is like the most ADHD segment of an ADHD Christmas special ever recorded.
So you'll be pleased to know I've taken some of my ADHD medication. I actually can barely keep my eyes open right now, and it's actually quite feral. But let's move on to talking about food. What a joyous subject. Eating disorders at Christmas. Obviously, as always, there's a content warning for the whole podcast. But we are going to be talking mainly about navigating ARFID. ARFID is avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and obviously the holiday season is particularly tough for anybody with an eating disorder. So when it comes to ARFID, it's not necessarily about eating too much or trying to meet the social expectations around food. It can also be just having your safe foods there, feeling the pressure, the anxiety that comes with kind of ARFID and food, and like the sensory sensitivities. And it can be obviously extra challenging, whatever kind of eating disorder you struggle with, when family members don't understand your eating habits. There can be awkward moments when people pushes food onto your plate or question why you won't eat certain dishes. This can trigger anxiety, shame, and just lots of feelings of isolation, pressure. It can make food become even more of an anxiety provoking, more stressful. And it's really tricky, especially if your family or the people you're around don't necessarily understand. And I think that can be such an additional barrier, especially when it comes to something like ARFID. Obviously, having struggled with a variety of different eating disorders over my lifetime, I have navigated Christmas with anorexia. And I think that's a very different, not very different, but in kind of some ways for me personally, and obviously everyone's different, it was really very different in terms of the fact that obviously when it came to my anorexia, like it was something that even if at the time I didn't necessarily want to overcome, it was something that I needed to overcome and wanted to overcome. And it was something that, the voice that was telling me not to have these things wasn't good and wasn't healthy. Whereas when it came to ARFID, I have a very different relationship with that eating disorder, like for me personally. So it's harder as something that, like, and the way I view it. So it can be like more for me, it was a longer term thing, and it took a long time. And they definitely went through the Christmas awkward stages. But now I am very open and honest with people, and I take no nonsense. There's going to be another word that I could have put in there, but and like that's not to shame anybody who can't do that, because I couldn't do that for a very long time, and depending on the situation, and obviously like because of my history, people know that I've struggled, and even the ones who don't necessarily understand, and for a long time they would make comments and it would bother me. Now I really don't care. I know myself, and I know what I can do, and my focus is being healthy, and that is all year round. That's not just at Christmas. And I don't believe that Christmas is just about the food. I think that, absolutely, for people who really enjoy food and really like get a lot out of that, that's amazing. And that's why Christmas is such a lovely time of year for foodies. But there are other aspects of Christmas, and there are other ways of still getting the essence of like, and a lot of the food comes from like gathering and being with people. And I don't need to put the pressure on myself. And if anyone wants to question, they can get my TED talk on eating disorders and they'll regret asking, let's be honest. But, and again, like that's not to shame anybody else or like to say any, like my way is the right way. I think it came from a long term of like being embarrassed, like being quiet, being stressed about the whole food situation. Literally, I went to an event the other week and I had my snacks in my bag. And when the dinner came out and it was a whole butternut squash, I was like, bro, no thank you. I can't eat a whole butternut squash. I got my snacks out. And the thing is, like, obviously, there are two elements of this. Like, there's the physical health, like getting the right nutrients, and that is obviously very, very important. And that, but that isn't what we're talking about. And obviously, how you get your nutrients and how you get the what your body needs, that obviously remains the same regardless of the time of year. But if that involves you sticking to the same routine behind the scenes, do that. And then in the gatherings, you can still have the time of your life without focusing on the food, without feeling all of those things. But obviously, equally, if the reason you can't or don't want to is maybe like mine used to be, like worrying about calories or all of those things, like realizing that really life is so short, and like that extra peanut, unless you've got a nut allergy, then maybe don't have the peanut. Just sat on a photograph. Um, is really like, and it's that thing of like there's so much focus around the food at Christmas, and that isn't actually the essence of Christmas. And so I have many a time gone to an event, brought my own apple tango, brought my chocolate buttons, and had the best time, live, laugh, loving. And do people say, oh, do you want this? Yeah. Often a no gets you out of the thing, and people aren't really that bothered. If there's a push, I bring my own stuff. I've got my own food. I have it out so people can see that I'm like consuming something. And then ultimately, if they're going to keep pushing me, I'm going to give them a TED talk. And soon, let's be real, like the karaoke goes over the top and they're like drowning me out. So, and they don't ask again. So it is so tricky. And I think for me, like when it comes to eating disorders and Christmas, there is a twofold approach. Like there's the first one of being the your body and your health is so important and you need food and you need fuel, and that is a non-negotiable, whether that be Christmas, whether that be July, August, doesn't matter the month, and that needs to stay the same. But how you do that is completely up to you. And if you need to do exactly the same routine behind closed doors, but then, do something different in front of the people, that is okay, as long as you're getting what you need. But equally, if you want to have like, eat all of the Christmas food and like, yeah, is it labeled? Food does not have a good or a bad, and there's no morality with food. It's just a thing. And for someone who has ARFID, who has no interest in food, like not in a, obviously it isn't a disorder because I've got ARFID, like I can't relate and like share my experience with that. But from people who I know who, enjoy food, that's okay. Like it's not the food that's the problem, it's the emotional value that we attach to it. It's our self-worth that we attach to it, and it's when we use it as a control mechanism to feel in control of aspects of our lives and our feelings and our emotions. And like food is not a control mechanism, and whether that be overeating, undereating, or anywhere in between. I think that's the difference of like being able to take the emotional value of food away, which is really hard. And let's be real, like I am not someone who is necessarily very qualified to talk about that. But I think the terms of like my tips is what I do, what I need to do, and I'll do it, and I will talk the hind leg off a donkey to anyone who wants to question me why. But I guess some tips for other people: pre-plan your meals, communicate with your family, focus on the socialization, focus on it being a time of year of like being around people. Don't allow food the power. And then creating that safe space again to eat. And if that involves, food being something that you do like away, that's okay, as long as that's like not impeding on like obviously your like well-being and stuff. it doesn't need to be this whole, like, it's not all about the food. Now, something that can make the holidays incredibly challenging is complex PTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder. Um, it can really bring the emotional intensity of the holidays and can be a real double edged sword. And as someone who struggles with feeling joy and happiness, that can be really hard, as well as the kind of expectations and the narratives that are shoved down our throats in terms of family dynamics or like what other people have. And it can really make people who have struggled with lots of different things in their past, it can be make us acutely aware of like what we're missing or what has happened to us. And it can be quite a triggering time of year. And I think there can be certain family gatherings or holiday traditions which bring up painful memories, whether that's the stress of past Christmases or ties triggered to the season itself, or whether that's just the kind of family things, whether that be seeing certain people or whether it just be seeing other people celebrating or having people around and kind of realizing what you've missed out on or what you don't have. And there's also that pressure of like being happy and it's being the most amazing time of the year. And as someone who has, as I said, like can struggle with the joy of life, it can feel like a lot. And I think there's complex PTSD is something that I'm still very much at the beginning of navigating and realizing how it affects me. And obviously, it's all of these are so individual and unique. Like I keep saying that, but it just is obviously. So it's really like hard to kind of, and again, like my complex PTSD isn't something that I'm necessarily able to talk about at the moment. So therefore it becomes quite like an ambiguous thing that's like just a bit like we're not actually talking about anything very useful. I think I'm not sure exactly how I'm gonna deal with it. I think it's the thing of being kind to yourself, which is like so cliche. That self care, like being really aware of like yourself and like knowing your triggers, identifying your triggers, having those safe places, safe people, preparing yourself emotionally, being able to step away, setting emotional boundaries. But all of these things can be really tricky. And I think if you hopefully, if you do have complex PTSD and you're getting, any therapy, obviously that it's really important to chat to the professionals about this kind of thing and like having that therapeutic space to talk through feelings and like keep yourself grounded. And I guess like having those connections to like to life and like holding on to trying to stay grounded and like aware of what's going on. Having those people who you're safe people, and even if you're not with them because it's over the Christmas period, like if you're able to just text them every now and then and just or have something to look forward to when it's all over, I think can be really helpful. It's really weird because Christmas has always been like I would always say my absolute favorite time of the year. Like I've literally been Christmas obsessed, and this year I just haven't been. And it's weird. Like I think it's helped in some ways because I haven't put anywhere like literally didn't realize it was Christmas. Like there hasn't been the pressure and the expectation, which I think has been good. I've been so busy, which again, like for some people that works, some people that doesn't. For me, it kind of really has helped. I think there's just a lot of I'm lucky, I guess, in lots of ways that I think there isn't as much pressure, and because of like who I am and what I've been through and where I am now, I very much, without necessarily realizing and probably slightly in that pathological demand avoidance way, like really stick to my ground of like what works for me and like won't put myself in positions. And that being said, like I am going home for Christmas this year, and that comes with its own mixed bag of feelings. And again, like it's a bit too close to home to kind of really talk about, on the internet. But I think that thing of just like, it's just the pressure. I think we put on so much pressure, and like, depending obviously on your like reasons behind your holiday celebrations, like working out what is it like, and it's meant to be this, what is it meant to be? And obviously, like, it's not, there isn't that perfectionistic aspect. I'm really, this is gonna be the most rambly episode because I literally cannot keep my eyes open. I actually literally, I'm literally falling asleep while filming this. It's very bizarre. But anyway, I completely lost my train of thought.
I think what I was trying to say was, if you are able to take Christmas, the holidays, for what it is, for what works for you, and relinquishing that pressure and realizing that although the songs say it's the most wonderful time of the year, it might not be. And that's okay, just the same as the rest of life. And actually, it can be the most wonderful time of year for you in the way that it looks like for you. And that might not look the same as the Christmas adverts. It might not look the same as the societal expectations. But actually, it's the meaning behind it for you and for the people you love and you celebrate with, and holding on to what is that meaning and why you do these things. And like, it doesn't have to be this big performative act, and it doesn't have to be what society thinks Christmas should be. And you know, if you just spend the day with your best friend eating a takeaway and, you know, watching Love Island, don't know why that came to me. Never watched Love Island myself personally, but anyway, that's okay. And if you're having the time of your life doing that, perfect. I think what I'm trying to get at, but I literally have, as I said, like, brain has gone. It's that magicalness can look different for everybody, and like, make your own kind of magic.
All right, so we actually made this through without me falling asleep, which I think is an absolute achievement in itself. And here we are. The holidays are here. The holidays are hard, and there's no getting around that. But remember, it's okay to take things one step at a time. It's okay to do it your way. It's okay to say no to things, to focus on your mental health, to focus on what works for you. And it's okay to just be a human, be yourself, and spend Christmas in the way that works for you. And whether you're spending Christmas alone, with a chosen family, or surrounded by your relatives, and if they don't really get it, that's okay. Remember, you're doing the best you can, and that is more than enough. If you're listening to this, I hope you give yourself permission to let go of this idea of a perfect holiday and embrace what feels right for you. You're allowed to celebrate in your own way, in your own time, and in your own space. And above all, you are not legally detained by anyone's expectations, especially not at Christmas. You've got this. I managed to get a little dad joke in there, but thank you so much for tuning into this special Christmas episode of No Longer Legally Detained. I hope some of what I rambled on about today may have been helpful, and if it was, please do share the podcast, share it with someone who maybe needs it. I hope you are able to feel as grounded as you can as we move through this Christmas period. And remember, this time next week, it's literally all going to be over. It comes around as quickly and it goes, is that the phrase? I don't even know. But yeah, look after yourselves. Please do follow the podcast. Please share, it means so much. And yeah, have a lovely holiday season, whatever that looks like to you, whatever you celebrate. And take care of yourselves. Look after yourselves. And remember, you are beautiful and amazing just as you are. Do not need to change. And I will see you next week for another episode. Take care. Lots of love. Goodbye.